What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Crumble, and today I want to talk about the Sanctum nerfs in 3.26. Yes, if you haven't heard about it, Sanctum has been nerfed. The Sanctum Endures are in shambles, the ASA has won, the Anti-Sanctum Alliance has prevailed, and Sanctum has been nerfed in several ways. I wanted to cover this topic real quick before the new league start, because I've been someone who's enjoyed Sanctum ever since the game mechanic came out. I have been a big fan of this league mechanic, not just because of how lucrative it is, but just because I found it really enjoyable to run myself. I started running Sanctum during Sanctum League. I immediately fell in love with the league mechanic to the point where during Sanctum League, I ran 11 SSF original scriptures because we couldn't trade for them back then. Yes, they were more common, but regardless, I ran 11, I failed 1, so I got like 10 original sins during Sanctum League. And ever since then, I've run Sanctum quite a while. I've made Zoomy builds for it. I can't say the builds I've used are entirely mine, but I think that I'm one of those people that made, some of the faster Sanctum builds. And it pains me to tell you that we've reached the point where, Sanctum is no longer, in my opinion, an S tier mechanic. And because of how vague the changes are, it's probably going to end up being like an A tier or maybe even B tier, depending on how rare divines are now. But essentially, Sanctum got hit in several ways in 3.26. Now, the first way, well, before anyone, decides to G-check me, I'm just going to show you the past 2 leagues, well, 1 league and 1 event. These are my characters, real quick. This is my occultist in Settlers. I joined Settlers very late due to work. I made this build within, probably like 4 or 5 days within the league, within my league start, which was Giga late. And as you can see, it's like a 350 movement speed, pretty generic, power charge stacker with some lightning warp tech. I farmed, this was farmed in like 5 days, and +1 max power charges helm, mage blood, all the good stuff. This is my Frisha character that was also farmed in a couple of days. Mage blood, that helmet was pretty wild to get, 3 passive voices. Basically what I'm trying to say is that I've been running this mechanic, and I was in love with Sanctum quite a bit. I probably still am. As you can see, the way I build my characters are like very little defense, basically ZHP, and I was able to get to 6 Sanctum runs per hour quite reliably on both of these builds. And unfortunately, both of these archetypes have been now nerfed. Simply because Ralakesh Impatience, as you can see here in the patch notes, Ralakesh Impatience unique boosts now have one of either. Count as having maximum number of endurance, power, or frenzy charges, as having, count as having the maximum number, basically, of each of those charges. It's no longer all 3 together, it's just one of them now. Now, the problem is, both for Hexblast, and I'm gonna talk about Hexblast in a second, and for the Penance Brand builds I did, this was pretty build defining. The frenzy charges were really important. The power charges are like 100% must have. And the frenzy charges were also really important. And unfortunately, those builds don't have that many ways. There are still some ways of generating frenzy charges, but with how easy it was with these boots, this is like a massive hit to probably the 2 most common build archetypes that people run for Sanctum. Not only those, but like other build archetypes that weren't that mainstream, more kind of niche situation, were also nerfed by this change. And while you can still probably use max power charges Ralakesh Impatience, it's a massive hit to those archetypes, and the frenzy charge generation was quite important for those builds. Now, this is the first hit we took. The second hit we took was the most reliable, most common, and easiest to get up and running build, which was essentially Hexblast, got nerfed into the ground. As you can see here, Hexblast now has 2-second cooldown time with 3 uses. this is disgusting. This basically makes, you know, the whole mechanic of the skill as a miner obsolete. You know, it's really bad. You want, like, be my guest and try this, but it's gonna be unplayable. Unless I imagine you can probably bypass some of this with the rune graphs that give you, you know, chance to not consume a cooldown or whatever. But I don't know if you can stack 5 of those. If you want to stack 5 of those masteries that the rune graphs give, it's gonna be, you know, you have to take back a lot of power just to do that. It's just it's dead. Hexblast is dead. So that being said, the two most common and, in my opinion, fastest archetypes got nerfed to the ground. That's one huge, you know, hit that Sanctum took. And the second huge hit that we took is basically this nerf. The Sanctum room rewards, which allow you to defer currency to the end of the floor or the end of the Sanctums, now have a lower chance to contain high tier currency like Divine Orbs. And on floor 3, those currency items no longer appear with stack sizes greater than 1. This means essentially that we're going to be seeing a lot less Divine Orbs. Not only that, but we don't get the 2 Divines anymore. Unfortunately, well, you can get them on the last floor, but in my opinion, the biggest issue is how much less common they're made. And, you know, based on what I know about GGG, it's probably, you know, probably noticeable at the very least. Yes, Sanctum is still probably quite lucrative, especially early league because of all the bubblegum, all the chaos. You know, it's still a very lucrative league mechanic, but it went from one of the best day 3, day 1, day 2, day 3 league mechanics, one of the most profitable ones. It's probably like 2nd or 3rd place now. Which no longer makes it an S tier, especially considering, you know, how much skill you have to put in to get comfortable in Sanctum with low investment. So in my opinion, this is going to drop down to either A tier or B tier in terms of, you know, profitability. I, in the past, have seen people run, or like have heard of people run, you know, 4, 5, 6 Sanctums without seeing a single Divine Orb. So now, Divine Orbs being made even rarer, it's probably, you know, quite a noticeable change. And this means that it's no longer as efficient to run Sanctum early league. And unfortunately, myself, I'm not that, you know, I'm not that interested in running Sanctum after these nerfs, especially because my favorite build archetypes got gutted as well. And it's really sad for me, but it is fine. I needed a change of pace on league start. I needed to do something else. But I wanted to cover, you know, some of these news, and more importantly, I wanted to give you like an insight on how this is going to probably change the economy a little bit, what this will mean for, you know, Original Sin, for example, and how it's going to affect basically, you know, all the Sanctum Endures and everything. At the end of the video, I'm going to give you 3 build archetypes that you can still run Sanctum with reliably on League Start. But before that, I just wanted to touch base and, like, you know, talk a little bit about what I think is going to happen to the economy. Now, first of all, Sanctum, and because of how popular it was, a lot of people really League started in Sanctum. And that resulted in people farming a lot of Chaos and a lot of Divine Orbs. And unless the new League mechanic, well, the League mechanic probably definitely won't have this feature, but unless the new, not the Mercenaries of Tratus, but the new expansion maps that we got, unless they dish out a bunch of Chaos and Divines easily, probably the cost of these currencies will be, you know, much slower to pick up during the league start, which essentially means that I think, you know, Chaos and Divines will be much more valuable early, which also means that probably most of the items will be slightly cheaper on league start when it comes to Divine Orbs. And well, that's obviously, you know, it's irrelevant because, you know, these chaos and divine orbs won't be in the economy anyway. But it's just gonna help those people that were farming different things, you know, probably have like a 5%, 10%, maybe even up to 20% cheaper items. We don't know yet, but this is my take on what's going to happen to the economy. Divine orbs will you know, have higher value as well as chaos because of the sheer amount of chaos you could get out of Sanctum. So it's probably going to be a bit of a slower economy at the start when it comes to those two currencies, in my opinion. Now, the second thing is, I think a lot less people will be running Sanctum, so tomes will be much cheaper. So, you know, all the Magic Find Andes will probably have like a harder time selling their tomes. The tomes will drop in price, and I think because of, you know, the Sanctum changes, tomes will be quite cheap early and accessible either way, because not a lot of us are going to be running Sanctum anymore. And that means if you want to do Sanctum, it's still not a bad league start strategy by any means. It's actually, in my opinion, still pretty good. Even after reading this, and as painful as it sounds, it's probably not that bad on league start. Now, when we approach, you know, the mid-league or like 1-2 weeks into the league, he probably won't be as lucrative as before. I can tell you that for sure. But there's also a caveat. Now, my favorite way of running Sanctum was stacking, you know, quantity of relics found in the end, which essentially guaranteed that I get 2 unique relics at the end. So I was like sort of, you know, fishing or trying to get original Sin relic, which I was getting eventually, reliably, after enough runs. But that means it's gonna be probably harder to get. So first of all, the room reveal relics will be cheaper. Some of the unique relics will lose their value because, you know, now you're less likely to get divine orbs, which means that Chalice unique relic will be less relevant. The room reveal one, or the one that duplicates, what is it called? The smaller one, not the Chalice one, the other one. Anyway, I forgot the name. But it's also going to be less relevant, and probably people will resort to running my favorite strategy, which is quant stacking of relics found in the end. And also, the Sanctum nerfs will result in a lot less players playing Sanctum, so original Sin will be much more expensive, which essentially means that, you know, I don't even know if people are going to make original Sin runners. They probably will, because that's been one of the wildest, you know, ways to profit in PoE, because if you had an efficient original Sin runner, you could probably make a couple of mirrors a day. I haven't done it since Sanctum League because after the Sanctum changes, I found it too difficult to even bother. Well, I could probably do it. I've had many successful practice runs, but I just didn't want to get into that because I generally run Sanctum for like a week and then I, you know, go and make a Giga build and enjoy some other content like magic finding or like boss killing, whatever, you know, floats your goat. But basically, it's gonna mean that original Sin will probably double in price. It's also gonna mean that there's still something to, you know, try and get in Sanctum that's very profitable, but the reliability and the variance to it is gonna be much larger, or like smaller reliability, larger variance. So, you know, these changes will result into, and this is what GGG is also, you know, going for. Eventually, they want to make a grander pass to the rewards and the content and make it like a more specific thing rather than just getting raw currency. But we'll see where that ends up in the future. So that's basically it about the Sanctum nerfs. Those are my predictions. One thing I wanted to say though, if you want to still run Sanctum, I'm gonna say there's 3 builds that I can definitely tell you you're gonna have a good time at league start if you want to run Sanctum. Now, before I go into these 3 builds, I'm just quickly gonna go over them. But before I go into these 3 builds, I'm gonna say that these builds are generally builds that can skip Lisha in her last phase, because I can't bother with the things that spread. I don't like this phase. I'm clunky, I'm old, I misclick a lot. So All these 3 builds can basically face the boss with enough investment, early league. And without further ado, I'm just going to show you what I think these builds are. Obviously, the first choice is still going to be Penance Brand, except the Penance Brand of Dissipation here that I'm going to show you is, I think this archetype was made by Lance. Let's just ignore these Ralakesh stackers real quick. That's a big number. Anyway, yeah, something like this, you know, something like this is probably pretty efficient. Oh, this is the Energy Blade one that I was talking about, the archetype made by Lance, if I'm not mistaken. This build has about 3 mil on Penance Brand, which, you know, I was actually phasing the boss with this, without any, even with the 50% increased health, with the 50% less damage, or was it 40% less damage? Anyway, Bad Affliction, no damage boon, and double boss health, and I was still phasing the boss with this build. So, you know, that's 3 mil damage. This is like a build that can definitely do it. Well, let's go to like a lower investment, maybe day 1, you know, just to show you what archetype you need to be looking at. So if you just go for PoE Ninja, Energy Blade, Penance Brand of Dissipation, you can have a look at these builds. This time I'm not providing any links because, you know, I don't want to give anything specific, just give you ideas on what you can run successfully. And this is my first choice. This build is really easy to get going, is giga cheap as well. Those are all day 1 POBs. The reason why these guys already have, you know, Astra Mantis and 6 links, you know, and all the good gear, is because Sanctum is just so lucrative, you know, it's easy to make currency early league. The second build I wanted to share with you is actually something that was quite forgotten, but it was one of the GG Sanctum builds back in the day. That's Shockwave Totem. That is another build that you can definitely do Sanctum on. The damage is definitely there, as you can see. Let's ignore the Ralakesh builds. They're not, the frenzy charges are not that important for this build. I know everyone is running Ralakesh, but if you come and see here, you know, this guy's just running other boots. This guy's running other boots. There's still enough damage to phase Lycia in eye level 83 tomes. So, you know, this is definitely a good choice. This is a very safe build as well. This is probably what I would recommend to people that are not that experienced to Sanctum, that want to have like a good time running the league the mechanic. So this is probably the best choice, to be fair, the most comfortable one. And it's still very much a doable build. You don't even need the Grand Spectrums, in my opinion. This is like, it's just not that relevant. Just go for Power Charge Ralakesh if you really want to go Ralakesh. But yeah, Hierophant is quite strong with totems. And the last build, which is probably more under the radar, is Icicle Mines of Fanning. Early league, this is day 3 POBs. You can see that the damage here is kind of big. This is a very good build for Sanctum. You can see the name of this guy is like Sanctum, obviously. Let's go ahead and see if there's any other, you know, Sanctum endures. Yeah, Sanctum Mogu. This probably means mogul or something. Like this guy's giga rich, probably, you know. But yeah, basically, this is one build that people, you know, haven't noticed much when it comes to Sanctum running. But Icicle Mines of Fanning, you know, have the gunshot feature, and they do a lot of damage on a low investment. So you can definitely run this build. And this is probably what I would run if I wanted to be, you know, the zoomiest. This is the zoomiest in my opinion. I know these guys don't have that much movement speed, but if I was building this, I would get to like a lot more movement speed. It's just the way I build my characters, because I like to run more Sanctums per hour. But yeah, this is basically all I wanted to say about Sanctum, guys. I just had to get this video out. Sanctum has been a big part of my identity as a PoE player. And, you know, I wanted to cover these changes. Personally, I might try Sanctum once or twice during first or second week of the league just to see how it feels. But I'm not league starting as a Sanctum enjoyer. Even though I'm league starting a Penance Brand of Dissipation build, I'll just try to go into T17s and farm my currency there, because I think T17s on day 2 or 3 are basically S tier now. Like if you can have a build that can efficiently farm T17s early, it's the biggest money you make in the game currently, unless, you know, there's something wild with the league mechanic, but we'll have to test and see about that. But that's basically it. Oh, sorry for the lighting. But yeah, that's it from me, guys. I hope you found this somewhat useful. It's just a couple of suggestions if you still want to run Sanctum. And yeah, that's going to be it for the video. If you want to catch me live, you can catch me on Twitch TV/CrumblePoE. And unfortunately, no Sanctum this league for me, but we'll see. Maybe I have fun in you know, elsewhere. But yeah, take care, guys. Bye. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Crumble out.